Well,
Call this meeting to order.
Okay, let's hear the yes. Let's hear the yes.
Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor. Benefield. Brooks.
Here.
Freitag. Here. Griswold.
Here.
Gould.
Here.
Hart. Yes. Moran. Ogella. Here. Weigel. And Eustace. You do have a quorum.
Okay. Next we have the approval of minutes, committee minutes of the whole from August 13th. Move.
Second.
Second. And is there any additions and corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next we have the pollution control committee from August 13th.
Move.
Move.
Second.
Second. Any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next we have the CN interview committee minutes. Move.
Second.
Any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under old business, we have the public parking near courthouse. Nick?
Morning.
Morning.
We are still working on doing some research on this, but I wanted to bring back some information and then also ask possible permission for next month to do a presentation. As we talked about last week, we own the one half of the parking lot, the other half is owned by the city of Joliet. I'm researching whether I asked a couple of city officials and they weren't sure, so they were checking whether the city bought that or whether that was funded by Metro, because if Metro funded the purchase, there's certain restrictions that are on that. But we're looking to see if some of those restrictions can be lifted with replacement parking. And the reason that's important is if we wanted to pursue either a consolidation of that lot or just an agreement with City of Joliet that they would charge the same rate, we're not having one lot charging a higher rate, significantly higher rate than what the lot immediately adjacent to it is. But if we, hypothetically, if the county had possession of all that, we could collect even a greater amount of revenue from the entire lot. But that would have to be negotiated with Joliet because they own the other half, we own. So that's one point I'm researching. I haven't been able to get a final determination. The second issue, and I would like to bring you a map with all our parking next month. But the other issue is we have been part of discussions in the past, dating back to when Tom Danis was city manager. The city of Joliet was looking at automating their lots more than what they've already had, and they brought in some private sector parking operators who did extensive work on pricing and also just types of automation you can do. There's different levels of just kiosks versus fully automated, where you have virtually machines and somebody just maintains the machines and helps with problems. We could ask those folks to come to the committee and present what they've done. It's been a number of years since they did that work, but they're still looking. The challenge was when we were looking at decks in the past too, is that what we charge for parking in downtown Joliet doesn't pay for a deck. It's without a highly subsidized deck. So, but if we're talking about raising our parking fees, that may justify some of the automation and be a long-term savings. So, and I would assume if we're going to do anything like that, we would go out to a formal bid process for something like that, for equipment or services to help with that. But this would just give you a flavor for it. This is one of the major parking companies in the Chicagoland area. So, if that's something that the committee would be interested in, I could see about getting them scheduled for a future meeting. Because I think that would be helpful to see what. Yeah. Because that's kind of goes along with the second item about credit cards.
That'd be fine. Yeah.
And the other issue is, I guess, long-term, where we put kiosks. We don't want to run electric and all the other stuff to a site and then have to move it if we're going to. I don't know what the status is of if we're going to move to Chicago Street. I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of interest on either side to move right now, but where we put the kiosks, it's got to. I mean, we put it on the courthouse property, but it's got to be convenient. So.
Personally, think it's more value as a town square, but that's like something Joliet. Nick, can I ask a couple things on parking lots? On our lot, I'd actually just be interested to see who originally owned the whole property. I don't think it was always split. I was just out of curiosity. That would just be Was it a county property originally, and we gave it over for a commuter to Joliet? I'm just curious, do you know?
I know that there's a long legal history to that, which some
Okay.
folks are aware of, because that's how
I'm
the
just
chief
curious.
judge has a role in the public trust argument there. Public use, I think is the right term, maybe. But someone has that, I don't have it.
I'm just out of curiosity of
Right
why,
away,
I
explain.
guess, kind of historical,
Right.
how did the property wind up getting split, because it's an odd split. It's like in the middle of a parking lot, there's like a wall, it's not a wall, but there's a curving there, so.
Well, the lot to the east of the jail, there was a postage stamp that was cut out of that because someone else owned it and the city
I remember
grabbed
that
it
too,
before
yeah.
we did. We had everything else around it.
Except that little
And-
piece.
And then and the city has acquired
Yeah.
that through a deal with us, which was part of the deal for
Was
the
it
other
all?
side.
Yeah.
But the city has also acquired that. There was a building there a number of years ago, not that long ago.
I was around for that, it was an old gas station or car repair place. Yeah, I think that's why we didn't take it, they had issues, it had some environmental issues, yeah.
I wasn't able to get it on the board, to the board office to get on the agenda, but we can produce aerial maps of all the area and highlight it all, because it's changed.
It would probably be a good.
So you can see as a reference, and it probably is going to continue to change, but we'll get an aerial map for the next meeting.
I have one other question, Nick, on our parking lot. It has to do with commuters parking in our lot. And I know it's been there for a long time, so I'm not, I don't know who gets to park there, or who doesn't get to park there. I don't know if the spaces come up, if it's just handed out to who's ever on a list, or if there's a list or no list, or why they're there at all, actually.
My understanding was, and I said this last week, I was corrected that it's a smaller number than I thought, but there are some spaces that are like a double spot, and if you park, people who are going in and out of the courthouse, you'd have to take their keys, and we don't want to get into this. So the people who arrive very early in the morning when the parking lot attends, they allow commuters to park in the back spots, and then they park other people
And then
behind
they just pay
them.
the daily route, daily fee?
I believe they may pay a higher fee. I didn't check that.
I mean, but who has set those policies? And who has made those determinations? And like I say, it's a practice that's gone on prior to this administration, it's gone on for a long time.
Well, and
I was actually around when they allowed it, and they did it because they needed the revenue at the time. It was kind of like not so good.
well, and Mr. Richards, you're aware that the staff worked under the county executive
Correct.
structure, technically, but the funds all are under the control of the chief judge.
So who sets the policy for that? I guess what I'm saying is that, I don't know who sets the policy, whether there's gonna be commuters there or not. I don't know. There's always the problem, if you don't have a good policy, you're accused of some type of favoritism, whether, whoever that may be, I mean, so who sets the policy for that? Is it the chief judge, or is it the board? I know the county executive has the operational oversight.
We have,
I mean, who's doing what?
That'd be a request.
I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get something that's firm in the way of policy, because I don't think it's a good practice that we currently have, that's all. If there's something in place that we can put in place, I don't know if that's up to us, or you just want to talk to the chief judge, or?
The control of the parking lot is the county's. So whether it's a combination of county board and county executive, I can look into that.
Well-
But the parking lot is owned by the county.
I know this, that, I mean, county board is obviously the policy and the executive form of government, and the county executive has day-to-day operational oversight, and he has all those responsibilities. So, I mean, there's a number of things that, you would get these audits, and I'm not so sure how we, what I call our revenue, our cash control policies. I know you're tight on them.
well, but this is something that wasn't brought to the board, and if we need to, and even if we don't need to, we can. We have worked with the auditor, the county auditor,
With good policy.
to strengthen some of our cash control policies, and some of those are still probably, we could make them more stringent, but they recommended, we worked hand in hand with them and strengthened some receiving policies and things like that, just to make sure that we didn't believe there's anything wrong going on there, but just to solidify a good best practice. We can bring that to the board. We didn't bring it to the board previously because we thought that was more of an internal control issue.
I don't
But if you'd like to see
bring it
those.
to the board, I would be interested to see it.
Right.
seeing it. I don't, you know, now somebody who's been in cash businesses for 50 years, you know, where I'm coming from, you know,
One for
I mean,
you,
yeah,
one for me.
you know, you can develop partners real quick, you know.
Well, that's why we made sure we were.
Yeah, strong. But at any rate, I would like to see some policy. Yes,
I just, because we're moving the resolution forward, increasing those fees from $5 to $8, if there's a higher fee for the commuters that are parking in the courthouse parking lot, it's probably something that we ought to know.
It's just not a fee, Bruce. Who gets to park there, who doesn't? I mean, is there a methodology of making it, or is it done by buddy system?
Right now, my immediate concern though is, are they paying more than
Paying
it's?
exactly
Jim,
what
can I-
every other person.
I just checked with David, he said it's $5 across the board.
Okay.
And here's the thing too, we do not ask people, where are you going? They come in,
Yeah.
they pay $5 and they stay all
Exactly.
day, they can stay all day. If they come for 15 minutes, they leave, they come back, we charge them $5 again. That's where our parking staff is very cognizant of how much money they raise each
Right.
year, and they're always trying to turn over a lot more. It's just, I think,
Believe it or not, when I started on the county board, that parking lot was losing money. That gives to cash management. But I mean, it was actually losing money.
when the tollway had
And then
overseers come in,
finally
they
somebody
collected
took
more money
over
than
and
when
said,
they didn't have
well, we're gonna
overseers.
watch things, you know, but, so,
I passed the collect lots.
well, here again, I think that,
I don't.
it's open to the public. I mean, we don't restrict it.
To Bruce's point.
So if they're just
I
there
don't-
because they're there, and it's first come, first served,
Right.
or are we gonna let our lot get filled up with commuters when it's really for
But
people using the courthouse?
I think the market has determined that because if, as some of our board members have said, if you come at 7 o'clock in the morning, the commuter lots may have spaces. When you get to 9 o'clock, 8:30,
true. Everything's full.
everything's full, including our lot.
Yeah.
And so, but our lot does turn over because people are in line waiting for court, they go in court, they leave.
Yeah.
Then they pull down the full sign and but it turns over during the day.
We'll see what I hear later in the day, not that late in the day, that lot's usually empty.
1 o'clock traffic court, it fills up again.
But I don't think moving the policy this month, if you're changing.
No, I'm not looking at.
I just wanted to clarify that, that's
I
not
guess I'm
gonna be
just
on.
asking, what is
$5 a day, I think is correct.
what is the policy?
And it's gonna go up to $8 across the board for everybody.
Those commuters,
Yeah, that's what's bringing,
Commuters are
that's what's
just-
brought forward.
Yeah.
so first come, first served, they say they're gonna be there all day, and we put them in the back.
But as I told you before, last week, the city of Joliet, and I confirmed this with John Grohl this morning, that they are moving forward with purchasing and building additional parking closer to where people are gonna access the train. So I think you may see their lot less full of commuters directly adjacent to us, because they're gonna go to the closest lot that gets them on the train that's the cheapest. So, but I think for us, then that will create a potential competitor who instead of paying $8 or $5 or whatever in our lot, if there's spaces in the adjacent lot, they may go over there if they know that it's cheaper. But that's why I'm thinking, that was one of the findings of this consultant, I remember when they talked to the city of Joliet, is if you have cheaper alternatives in the same proximity, you're gonna have competition. However, if we're charging $8 to be right next to the building, there's still an alternative, it's just you're gonna have to walk them. So if you're willing to walk.
That exists
That
now.
exists today.
Right, you can park on the street, you can park down here and walk if you wanted to, so.
All right.
When you do that overview map, Nick, can you just note the amount of spaces? each?
Okay, so you don't need,
We'll bring all of this back and we'll
Yeah.
put a memo, because the other thing I think would be important for members who maybe weren't here for this, is when we did the one IGA that we have approved with the city of Joliet, we traded some parking near south of the train station on the east side of Jail, and we received parking on the east side, and there's another piece of that that's gonna come into play, because as part of that agreement, we were parking sheriff deputies directly across from the entrance to their building.
Correct.
And at some point, it was spelled out in there, at some point, if they
They're gonna
needed
move
those
out there.
spaces, they would
Right.
create replacement parking on the south side of that side street there, which they are planning to move forward with that, and that's all part of this agreement. So that, I'll spell that out too and show you where that's at. But that's already been agreed to by this board and the city council. It's their obligation to provide parking on the east side of the jail so that the sheriff's department can access their main entrance to that.
What's the situation with the Midwest Bank property parking right now? They still have signs up that say it's only for Midwest Bank.
They have, as part of our lease agreement, they have parking to the west of the building there, a limited number of spaces. We have spaces, if you know where their ATM, and I can spell this out too. The ATM machine, we have signs up for our sheriff deputies.
Right.
We put up signs so people know that those are reserved spaces for the folks in the building. And then there's a small, like maybe 5 spaces on the southwest corner, which are just open spaces. So if you ever go into City Hall, you can use them, they'll come to. But then south of Washington Street, that's all our parking. We have signs up, and that could use some improvements over time if we put some into our capital budget to improve it. We could probably squeeze some additional spaces out there. We may want to put another access point.
You might want to put that on.
And the city of Joliet police do park back in the grass in the far southwest quarter, which I've mentioned to them that we're going to have to either come up with an agreement on trading land, sending them a bill, or whatever, because they don't give us anything for free.
Oh, Joliet, please.
And for a number of years, probably 4 or 5 years, First Midwest gave us free parking in that lot for approximately 40 county vehicles in the back, which were less desirable to their staff, but
First, Joliet did take out the parking meters for law enforcement cars around the courthouse.
didn't pay for that.
Okay.
Because I know John Bates pays for the meters to come out, his.
No, they were actually ticketing
Right.
police, law enforcement cars out there. And then they agreed to take those meters out. But, for law enforcement cars, basically. I don't think we paid them.
I don't know, I just asked because the city's policy is generally to charge people if you want to take out the meters in front of a
But
business.
I think we could have dealt with law enforcement.
But I think they don't want to tow squad cars, so.
So, okay. Yeah, well, it would probably be a bad idea. You must have stayed there. No, that's good. It would be bad idea to maybe give us a status report on the condition of our lots or improvements that could be done to our parking lots that we own. Yeah.
We can do that. I mean, I think there's some additional discussion around those properties of who owns the property around this too, just as a status update too, so.
Yeah. that'd be great. Okay.
Jim, you want that presentation at executive next month for the capital?
Capital, because of capital.
Would that be the same for the second item too, both items? Because
The,
they're tied together, right? The debit card, credit card option.
Actually, that's more of a finance. But you can bring it, it's more of a, I mean, what are you asking? Maybe we can just do it right here.
Well,
right now.
I think the committee asked about that. We talked about the option. We don't currently accept credit cards at the parking lot. If we're going to $8, there's going to be possibly more change involved. Now, if you come with a $5 bill or 5 singles, whatever. I mean, we provide change, but it would be more convenient in today's day.
I think you'd pursue it. I mean, can we agree? I mean, I think you pursue it, bring it back.
Well,
I think we should have a debit or credit card option. I don't know what's up.
You could then also increase
I would move
the
forward.
amount.
I would move forward. Everybody should know there's a cost to this. You know, you do pay to the credit card company.
And whether we add a convenience charge because we accept credit cards at a lot of our county offices, treasurer's office, land use department, recorder's office. That's a policy decision whether we charge a convenience charge or whether the county accepts that as a cost of doing business. So we're gonna have to figure that into the.
I
I mean, you could charge $8 and then we can put.
You think you're saying there's a 3% surcharge?
Right.
On top of it.
Your choice whether you use credit or cash.
A few percent. So, you know, which I would think we have because of our other policies on credit cards, I'd say we'd probably have to charge a surcharge, but not necessarily. Yeah, I think you just bring it, I think we'll pursue it and bring it back.
We will try to bring a comprehensive, here's where we're at, but then if we can get this one vendor or another vendor scheduled to come just to give you an overview of
Yeah.
what's out there, and then we can decide.
I would bring it, you know, it could be put on finance. When you're ready to bring it over, just take it to finance. Okay. I mean, if you want to do it next month.
We'll try to get it ready for next month.
Okay.
We've done the aerial maps before and brought that to capital the last several, not recently, but several years back, we were doing that, had a map. But some of those things have changed now with our acquisitions and our trades.
Okay. All right, very good. Do I need to enter a motion to send it to finance? Well, heard, I guess. Moved by Frizzalone, second by Mayor, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Do you want to do a motion then to move the other one to capital?
Yes.
To be consistent then?
That's great.
No,
The public parking, the map,
Oh, the
the presentation he's
okay.
gonna
okay,
bring.
okay. Move, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Then we'll go to, is there any other old business to bring forward? You know what, maybe I'll do this other thing. I do have something. I guess it would be kind of an old business. David, DLR, the contract negotiations are completed.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
You know, David basically did those negotiations. You know, that contract was assigned, was put over to the Public Building Commission. But now we need to execute that contract. So, I guess, Mary, my question is the county board has to fund that, or the county has to fund that. So does the county have the resolution to approve that? If we've already sent it to the Public Building Commission, but we did not attach any of the way of paying for it to them, what would be our next step? I guess I'm looking for a next step.
I guess I'm gonna have to look and see what we did. So we sent the project to them, but we provided them no funding. Is that, am I understanding correctly?
Correct.
We have to have a vote to provide the funding unless it's somehow being funded through public building.
Well,
Do they have funds?
you know, these, you know, well, we've already asked the public, we've already diverted one payment, 1.5 million to the sewer and water project. We may be doing the same to complete the sewer and water project. It would be the county's lease payment for the juvenile detention center. That would then be diverted, which this board would have to decide. So, one way or the other, they're gonna need at least 1.2 million at this juncture. So I would say yes. You know, if the county wanted, you know, they could probably do it, but then there wouldn't be enough for the sewer and water project. So they are gonna need additional funding.
So you are going to have to take some action to fund that.
Okay, so then I'd like to put that on this county board agenda actually. And the reason is we don't have to, because they can still execute and move along. But I think it's a pretty straightforward proposition. You know, that we sent there, now that we're gonna ask them to, they're gonna execute that contract. another way that we've done that, and I don't have a problem with that, actually. Yeah, we leave the money here at the county, and then as the payments come due, it goes to the Public Building Commission, and the Public Building Commission sends it over to the county for the money to be moved over for payment. That's okay with me. But one way or the other, we have to say it's gonna get paid for. I mean, so, go ahead.
I would recommend, whichever way you go, I would recommend that you put it into a resolution so that the officials within the county that are responsible for making sure that that money gets transferred and the payments be made, they have a document they can point to and say, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. Otherwise, what happens is down the road, somebody who may be new says, well, you know, but what is the policy?
Okay. Well then, Mary, let me ask you this, then, you know, I'm kind of thinking then that the county would then approve the DLR contract, along with the Public Building Commission. They would have to approve it if they're gonna pay for it. Would that make sense?
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
So can Reagan, maybe we'll put the DLR contract at your committee for the county board meeting next week? David, does that make sense? Okay, so the county will be approving the contract and then approving, of course, for that approval, they're agreeing to pay.
Jim,
Yes, Nick?
so the PVC then will they send the bills back to the county to be paid?
Yeah, you know, it's like we do it for the juvenile detention. I mean,
I think it's a better process.
So the adult detention center, there was $65 million worth of bonds. Those bonds were controlled, those funds were all controlled by the county. When there needed to be payment made, Public Building Commission would just send it over and say, here's the bills. Even though the Public Building Commission had oversight of the project, it didn't have oversight of the money.
And I think,
Control.
to your point, Mr. Moose, is in the past, this will eliminate, by the county paying the bills, but PVC doing the oversight of the
Day-to-day operation.
Day-to-day operation be done by the construction manager, and I think we've agreed that Dave Peck is going to engage with people on a day-to-day basis, Jim Ellis, others, but this way, we've been talking for the last couple of years, all the fundings come from the county, whoever these projects are, through capital committee, finance committee.
Right.
And we're trying to get a handle on what are all the projects, not only at the court, the River Valley, the health department, and all our facilities. It's all in one place.
Right. So I think I think it worked well for the adult detention center. For those of you who were not here, you probably never noticed because it was kind of a seamless thing. Occasionally you would see a resolution on the county board from the finance committee to pay the bills. And you only seen one lump sum that went to the Public Building Commission. You didn't see all the, you didn't see the 995 invoices. I mean, that's the idea behind it. We don't have to put all that minutia on. So that's fine. So can we pull out what we do at the adult detention center and just use the same thing? It was different. Okay, how about, will this prepare a resolution approving the DLR contract?
We're already on it. We'll have a resolution.
And the reason is, it's not, I don't want to delay, David Tack is managing this project. I don't want him to delay interfacing with, especially now with the CM and the architects to get this thing moving, to get a final scope, so we know what we're really dealing with. Okay, so, and you can't let another month go by, so this is, keep things, so you'll work on that?
Board office will work with Mr. Tack as well as with finance. To have that resolution ready for the board meeting.
Okay.
So we just need a motion to place it on.
So if I can I'll entertain a motion to place the DLR contract on the county board agenda under capital for approval.
Second.
All in favor? David, I would just be prepared, since everybody didn't have the ability to go through the details like I did and the Public Building Commission did yesterday. You might want to get that out or be prepared to talk about it at the board meeting. Okay?
Mr. Speaker, there's one other item of old business today, and that's the RTA tax distribution. I mean, the resolution that you wanted.
I was going to talk about that later. You know, last week we brought this up. It really was meant for discussion. I just threw something out. I mean, it wasn't, meant to be necessarily the number or not be the number. And we kind of approved it. I would rather send it back to finance. Let's see what the real number, maybe that would be needed for non-road projects. But maybe the split is one, maybe some things are running off. Bottom line, what we've committed to road-wise, when we know it's going forward. So I think that maybe I'd rather see the finance committee and have all members and the executive's office and the finance office be able to weigh in and give their view on what they think is an appropriate split. I don't think anyone, I mean, it's not a debate of should we use some for public safety. I mean, I think we all, in principle, that, some could be used for public safety. So, but let's see what number really maybe makes more sense. And we really did take a hard look at it. We really did do an analysis. We just didn't do it without a lot of thought. Okay? So I'm going to entertain a motion to remove that from the agenda, the county board agenda, and send it over to finance, and then we'll do it next month. Motion? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay? That should make everybody happy. Or not. They'll be unhappy later, but I'm happy now. Okay. All right. Under new business, authorizing emergency repairs for Pillar ADF. Just make a motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Funding request for the Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Declaring sheriff seized vehicles as surplus. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Awarding bid for sale of surplus vehicles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Request for additional victim witness aid under Marcy's law. I will, Mary, you can talk about this a little bit. This is actually something that's mandated from the state of Illinois. And we've been kind of working within the state's attorney's current budget. So we are going to have to bring some other people on. I do think that it's worthwhile. I mean, we don't pay enough attention to the victims very often. We'll focus on the bad guys.
Yeah, this was a constitutional amendment that was passed by the voters last November that was, the official term is the Crime Victims Bill of Rights. It's been called Marcy's Law in honor of a victim who, perhaps didn't get the courtesy she should have during the process out of California. But what it does is, although we had in the past under the statutes had certain notices in there that we were required to give to victims, this expands the right to notices and the right to participate in the process. But of course that increases the workload of our present victim witness aides. And one of our real deficiencies that needs to be addressed in the short term is that we don't have a victim witness aide at Rivervale. So while we have aides that go over, pick up the files, come and they mail out the notices, there is nobody present for those proceedings, and there really ought to be. Now, we are still waiting for rules to come down from the Attorney General's office, which may require even more staff depending on how they interpret the law and what we need to do. But in the short term, we need somebody right now. We had requested 2 new in our budget, but right now our victim witness aides are putting in much more than 8 hours a day, and we need to get somebody on before we end up having them have a lot of comp time that they then use, and we just get into a vicious cycle.
Let me ask, we're at the end of the budget here, so it's always difficult to say what we're going to add. I assume if the budget is done, okay, is that pretty much a correct assumption?
I would think so. I mean, they're preparing.
I'm looking at the finance folks.
That's correct.
So, was this request in those talks?
We requested 2 additional victim witness aides. We had, I think, 2 or 3. Two.
So you accommodated it in the 2016 budget?
I don't know
I'm
if they
asking.
accommodated it. I asked for it. Yes, we did.
Roshana, you think we provided for that in the budget, in the executive proposed budget? Yes, okay. Because, you know, I would say, like we basically always say, if you can deal within your current budget, we'll look at it at the end of the year, clean up if there has to be some adjustments made. In the meantime, you know, we found at least that you should provide enough funding in your 2016 budget to accommodate that. If not, then, you know, the state's attorney's office, with others, I'm sure will come to the county board and make their pitch why they think there should be some, county board should make some adjustments to their budget. I always like to say, that's always a difficult thing, so we're always looking to shift things around a little bit. But, so why don't we, you just like until you're hired, and we're aware of it.
Correct.
We're aware of that, you know, you would not have the money to continue it under your current appropriations.
Correct.
And we'll just look at the budget. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
And there's no other funding for this position? You said this was passed by the voters last November, and no money came with it?
No, there was not, I don't think, an initiative on the budget, on the ballot.
Will this person work in the office, at the state attorney office? That person will work in that office?
They will.
They will?
Yes. We presently have 4 victim witness aides.
Okay.
And this would be a
So, well, what is it, cases to be made, I guess, at the budget, as far as funds. And for the rest of this year, hopefully, we only have another. Do you have somebody hired already, or do you have to hire yet?
Well, we have a person on staff as a secretary who has the qualifications, so it would be transferring them and then posting for the secretarial position.
For this year, okay. Okay. Does this require action on the board's replacement hires for Sunny Hill? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now I want to say something about replacement hires, because it's not on. But I don't want to not have the discussion and the impression that I, don't want the committee to see everything that comes into the office. Sometimes, stays a little bit, there are little timing issues. But on hires, the executive's office did send to the county board office 4 positions for truck drivers in the highway department. Now, we discussed this last month. There was 2 that were done for it. I think the committee did want to bring those forward. They wanted to actually get some kind of review of how public works department operated, whether there was some alternatives, whether there was some room for efficiencies, and we'd like to look at that first before you do any hiring, and perhaps get into next year's budget. Okay. But I want you to know that those positions were forwarded to the office. And I assume Nick's going to make the case for why we should place them on. And so I'm going to give Nick a minute. But before I do, is the committee's position changed at this point? That you're still on a wait and see? If we can make better efficiencies, if we can make better use of part-time people? You know, I'm not comparing things always, but I can tell you that I'm not totally unfamiliar with road maintenance. And, you know, I've been involved with townships for many, many years, and we do a lot of roads. You know, Frankfurt Township, at one time, we had close to 100 miles of road. It's down to 60 or something. But we do subdivisions, you know, and we have basically, I think, 6 full-time people. And we do bring in some people to help in the wintertime if we need to. You know, so when I look at some of the grants, I think, well, maybe we can have some efficiency. I look at what the state does, and the state brings in snowbirds. I don't know if we're able to do that, but but they bring in people for seasonal work. And we haven't looked at any of that for some time. I don't think under our labor contract that we can do seasonal necessarily, or snowbirds. But it does accommodate us to bring in part-time people. You know, I think 2 part-time people in these type of operations, where you already have a good base of drivers and employees, supplementing it with part-time people can be extremely effective. Both for, you know, and it gives you kind of a bench for people in the future to bring on. They're fully trained, you know, they're good, they kind of earn their way on. So anyway, yeah. So it's still, I guess, take a hard look at that before we do any hiring. But Nick, go ahead. I'm not going to say another one. I'm just going to let you begin and end.
That's fine. I appreciate your explanation of how the process works. We historically submit to the board office at the beginning of the month hires that we believe are necessary, that have met the qualifications. There's been discussions in the past about qualifications. We've upped some of our qualifications, particularly in the highway department. We require virtually everyone to have a CDL so that they can assist in work. That sometimes is an issue for folks. And we bring to you only people that we believe are, number one, qualified, and there's a need. And really the only thing I'm going to say today, because I don't know even if we can procedurally get it forward since it's not on the agenda, but we've brought these forward to you, just like our other positions we bring forward, after a careful consideration of the budget we have available to us. And usually it's after keeping the position vacant for some period of time, and also bringing, oftentimes when we have the ability to, at a lower wage than the person outgoing. And that's all designed to meet your direction, this board's direction, of living within the budget we're given. Every year, for the past 6 or 7 years, I believe, the board has said, we're not giving you any more money to accommodate the union step increases or arbitration decisions, whether we like it or not. They're happening, but we're not getting more money to come. So all of our departments, and I think most elected officials, are trying to live within their budget. So we get a budget December 1, and we have to live with that through November 30th. And there's corrections at the end of the year, but we've not overspent our budget. This is within the budget. These are replacement hires, and very simply, this is because we've had a number of retirements. There was a group of individuals that came in 20-some years ago, whatever. They're all retiring, and people are moving up to the chain, seniority or outside hires, and we have 4 hires. We believe they're necessary to do the day-to-day maintenance of the roads now, keeping up with the lawn, the grass cutting, picking up dead animals, fixing culverts, whatever. When it's snow season, they'll be plowing snow. We're probably above kind of this norm of how many miles our truck drivers plow, which becomes a safety issue at some point. But right now, while they're out on the road, I believe, and I'll defer to Bruce School, but we're shifting staff around to accommodate safe work crews so that we have safety in mind, number one, because that's our employees, and safety is number one concern, but also serving the public. But my point is, we've heard, and I think most of the elected officials, department heads have heard, live within the budget, so they're all doing that. If they weren't doing that, everybody would be over budget, because if we immediately hired people when there was vacancy, we would be over budget, because we're accommodating the increases to the union contracts without large increases. We used to budget for the step increases of budget. We used to budget a more appropriate number for overtime. That's all just being lived with. So with the net effect, and this is what I'll kind of close with, is we're getting a budget that's supposedly a 12-month budget. Our people are trying to be responsible. Now they're being told, well, if you're in the last couple of months of the year, you can't hire, because we have to come to you. The elected officials, other elected officials don't have to come to you to get a higher pay. We just approve people, and it's like if they don't live within the budget, they're over budget. We're still going to pay them because we have to.
That's another issue.
That's another issue that we can't control totally. But from the executive's office, we do plan to live within our budget. These positions were budgeted, and this is within the directions you've given us. So I don't know if I should say to my department heads, fill the positions as soon as possible, if it's July or August, because then you get ahead of this September. And this isn't the first time this has happened. You guys have said this in the past, September, October, or November, don't hire until we have the budget. But we're accommodating these positions in next year's budget, and we may have more departures, we don't know. But we do bring you qualified applicants that have been vetted through a process. And there's a number of times where some folks would like us to hire more quickly, and we ask them to hold off so that we can build a little cushion in the budget so that we have enough to stay within the budget. So, and I don't know if all the board members realize that, but we don't bring everybody to you. We say no a lot before you get to you guys.
Any other comments?
Nick, you mentioned that these positions are basically, I guess, if I could sum up your homily there, that there were people promoted, therefore these job openings became available, and there's 4 openings that you feel necessary because of those moves. So in essence, not really creating new positions and or new hires, but because of those absences in those positions, these 4 jobs are necessary to take up the slack.
They're not new positions, they're replacement hires.
They're replacement.
If I'm going to probably just once again kind of restate what I said earlier. It's not a matter of, it's a matter of how do we do business. Do we continue to do business under this current model? For example, I could probably tell you, well, you have 4 people that retired that all had 5 weeks vacation, that all had to be covered. Now you don't have that. You're not going to have that same vacation coverage. I'm just saying as an example, so therefore maybe you don't need quite as many people. I mean, I'm really looking at not even the budget. I'm looking at how do we operate, and is there a more efficient way of operating? It has nothing to do with whether it was budgeted, Nick, or all I'm saying is, can we take a look at before we hire, and we have now the opportunity to maybe tweak how we operate. Can we take a look at that first?
Just with all due respect, we passed the budget last November. Nothing has stopped this board from looking at the efficiencies for the last months. Now we're at a position where we had 2 last month, now we have 2 more. So now it's not 4 new ones, it's 2 last month, 2 more came online this month. So now we're down 4 people. If we wait, I'm not saying we can't do without them, but if we have problems staffing, we can't provide the service. And nothing stopped this board from looking at the efficiencies all this budget year. Now we're at the end of the budget year. Now we're
Nick, it's something I'll speak for myself. It's not something I necessarily gave a lot of thought to until this came up, to be honest with you.
But while the board is reviewing these possible efficiencies, we're understaffed by what was budgeted.
Because this, the other point that I didn't make was years ago, and Jim, you've made this point repeatedly over the last 10 years that I've been here, we had a personnel budget. Every position was in a document. And several years back, you made this point very clear to everybody, that you don't budget for individual positions. Here's your money, make it work. Manage it. And basically what I'm hearing the message is, you don't believe, you're telling us we can't manage our money that we're given to manage, because that's really, I mean, you approve the county executive's hires. Nobody's disputing that. Currently, that's how the process works. But you're saying we're not managing our budget well. We're not over budget. Well, you never said that, but that's by denying.
Not even applying it.
Well, but by saying somehow we're not making wise decisions on the staff.
I'm not even applying that. I'm asking, can you take a look at it? But, okay.
Yeah, you know, when we go in and establish a budget, we're establishing that budget based on the current activities and the people that are there. And we've had no new hires for a while, right? Replacement hires, we've approved that kind of stuff. You now have, you said 4 new people coming on? How?
They're not new people. It's
No, no, no.
replacement hires.
Replacement hires. 4 replacement hires is what you're asking for. I just want to know. And you said that you've gone for a while without them being replaced. How long have we gone and what, for what numbers?
I don't have it off the top of my head, Chuck.
So when did, I'm trying to get an idea here. So you said 2 left last month and 2 left.
There's a process of posting, interviews.
Understood.
So I don't have it all.
So we don't know exactly how long
but-
those people are, so we don't know how long we've actually been able to exist without all 4 of them. And I think from what, if I interpret what Mr. Musis is saying here, is just because you have a budget and you're in the middle of that budget, doesn't assume that you need those services. And if we're talking about essential services for the county, and I think we need to evaluate our essential services, where there's some efficiencies that can be brought into play here in this. It doesn't matter if it's at the beginning of the budget, middle of the budget, or end of the budget. To have those kinds of discussions are why we are elected to these offices. And so whether we need, I don't know that we need all 4. I don't know that I've seen you make a case of need except that it's within a budget. And to say that something is within a budget does not necessarily show need or evaluation of efficiencies. All it says is I have X amount of dollars and I can spend X amount of dollars, so let me spend it. And what we're saying is, no, we don't want to see you spend X just because you can. What we want to see is how can you go in and evaluate the efficiencies of the processes that you're looking at. And then, if you can go in and show us that you need all of that, let's do it. Let's sign the check.
And that's where the budget process, every budget cycle, we come in, the departments come in and justify, and they have a much larger ask than you're ever going to approve. And we go through a painstaking process over several months, and this board can do that again this year. Going into 2016, you can spend weeks going through each line.
And we can also give you an example of what we would like you to come to us with at this budget, and wait until then, because you already said we could do
But we
that.
justified this year's budget when we passed it.
I think that the main question is though about the end of the year stuff. I understand the budget was passed before. What happens if we decrease the budget by 3%? What happens, do we fire people that we just hired 2 months earlier because that department can't afford that 4th person or the 3rd person anymore? And I think that's kind of the question.
The same thing has happened every other year when the board has taken the position that you're not going to accommodate bargain increases. The departments have to make those tough decisions. They're the day-to-day providers of the service, and they don't come to you and say, who do I fire if I have to cut? They make those decisions, not the board. That's why the board got away. Well, but the board got away from personnel decisions, because then you're not making those decisions, because I don't think you're in a position to know day to day, and sometimes
Have we reduced workforce?
yeah, the land use department is.
In the highway, and we reduced workforce? Or has it just been through attrition?
We have, I know Mr. Mooses was talking about townships, and many townships have lost mileage. The county has 600 lane miles across the county, and when we've had this debate before, we've presented information on how many truck drivers we have versus mileage. It's,
How many truck drivers do we have?
I'm gonna defer to this on this because I don't have my notes on this.
How many, let's ask that, well, how many truck drivers do we have?
31 drivers. So
31?
at least 4, that reduces by an 8,
So you,
round numbers.
so we got,
Reduced by 13%.
31, we have 31 minus the 4, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, 27?
13% reduction.
And how many supervising, that could potentially, if they had to, help in certain situations? How many supervisors do we have? That supervise these truck drivers?
7.
So we got 7 people
Supervising
31 people?
4 people each.
4 people each?
No, that's not true. I have 46. I have 76 total employees in my
7 on
department.
top of the 30.
Okay?
But 7
Oh,
can drive.
oh,
But 7 can drive.
If you're 100%, if every position is filled, how many drivers do you have? 31 or 38? I mean,
We have 49 maintenance employees.
49 minutes.
Of those maintenance employees, we have, do you want me to give you the individual type of workers in those 49?
I mean, I assume they're all maintenance truck drivers.
All those, no, they are not, no. They all have CDLs, so they all can drive a truck.
So you.
But we have
You needed them under
mechanics.
extreme emergencies.
Yes, absolutely. We have mechanics, we have operators.
Okay.
Now, those individuals obviously do other things than drive a truck.
Right.
But if we needed them to drive a truck in an emergency, they could absolutely drive a truck. But as far as drivers specifically, we have 31.
31.
And those are the individuals that we brought forward.
And
So if you take-
supervisory personnel that deals with the 31 is how many?
We have 7.
7. So you have 7.
Administrative, non-bargaining unit, personnel in the maintenance department.
Supervise it, and all they do is supervise the 31 drivers, or do they?
No, they
Yeah, also those.
supervise all of the 49.
Okay, so it's
All
7 to
49.
49.
No, it's
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So it's like 7
Yeah, and that's, obviously, we have 3 facilities
Right.
where those individuals are. Moni, Crest Hill, and of course, our main facility is in Joliet on Marloway Road.
That's a pretty good ratio, though.
Pretty
So
good.
we ever work with
Having
part-timers?
7 to 1? 7 to 1 ratio of the supervision to staff? That's really good. I mean, we have students in special ed with a teacher that has more students involved with kids that have behavior problems.
Well, and one of the maintenance supervisors is for grounds maintenance. That's his duty, takes care of our grounds, things like that.
But I think this brings up what
So
I
he's
think we've
an
all been
assistant.
talking about, though, about
All right.
are there efficiencies?
Now, let me explain though. We have 2 of these individuals are assistant maintenance supervisors. When we have one of our maintenance supervisors goes on vacation, is on time off, that person has to fill that position. We have to have somebody to supervise the individuals. So
How many
2
weeks
of
do they get
those,
off?
excuse me,
How many weeks do they get off?
depending on how many years of service they
Most of
have,
these
but they
guys
can go up to
are
5
4.
weeks.
Yeah, most of them. would
And
probably-
most of them have,
This group would be an older
yeah.
seniority group.
So when they take off, I need an individual that can take over for them. In this particular case,
Probably one is all.
assistant supervisors do that. Now, one of those supervisors also is the maintenance administrator. So technically, if you want to talk, we only have 4 4 individuals that are supervisors, because we have 2 assistants that help out or take over, and then we have the administrator who oversees the entire facility for maintenance person. Okay. As far as part-time individuals, they
Yeah,
can ask for
I'm just curious, have we ever used seasonal or part-time people?
Not for maintenance, I've had some part-time people for the administrative portion, but we've really never done it for maintenance.
Okay. Yes,
Wouldn't this be in Public Works and Transportation in your committee, Don? You guys not discuss any of this kind of
I
stuff?
get to hear, but generally the hires don't go to the.
No, but every month, the Public Works Committee does get a written report on the activities.
So this doesn't get discussed?
I mean, is it something you'd
Not the
like to
hires,
discuss?
Not the hires.
I mean,
Would
could
like to
that be?
discuss overall?
I would just ask Bruce a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, different departments in the county have had restructurings, and has the highway department ever had a restructuring, at least in recent years?
Well,
That would be
Or since
All-
you've been there, at
well,
least?
all I can say to that is, and I think I've repeated myself here a couple of
I'm
times on
just
this issue,
curious,
but
that's all.
we have new hires, we really haven't had new hires a long time.
So
We replaced six.
No, we're not losing lane miles, but I understand.
No, absolutely
No,
not.
no,
Center
no,
line
no,
miles we
no.
may, but everything we reconstruct is 5-lane facilities.
I think the discussion basically is this, okay, it's strictly replacement hires, but then the position is like, okay, for every replacement hire, for every person that leaves, they have to be replaced. You know, if 2 people leave, they have to be replaced. If 4 people leave, they have to be replaced. If 10 people leave, they have to be replaced. So the board is concerned is to say, well, do we have to replace all the people that leave? Okay, I mean, I think, okay, you've had 4 people leave. I don't think it would be reasonable to say we don't replace the 4 people. But maybe, you know, the board replaces 2 or 3 or whatever necessary to do a good job and continue on. And then maybe the next discussion is, and I don't want to repeat myself again, but we have talked about efficiencies and consolidations, and, you know, I would like to see where that's going to happen in the next budget, because it didn't happen in the last budget.
You know, well, so what's the pleasure of the committee for now? I mean, you want to have an additional discussion on how we may look at efficiencies? I'd like to at least have a discussion about it. I mean, when I mentioned you have less vacation time to cover, is that not true? Every one of these folks that have left, I assume we're at their maximum vacation.
Absolutely.
The people
Yeah.
coming in,
Yeah, they're gonna have,
they're gonna weep.
unless they were transfers from other
They don't get
departments.
anything for a year unless they're coming in from another. Have we got any
Correct.
internal? These are not internal candidates, or you wouldn't be here. 'Cause you don't need permission. for
That's
internal
correct.
candidates.
No,
You just hire.
These are all outside
These are all outside.
hires.
Do you have any internal?
Do we have any?
Yeah. Applications? On the security?
Yeah.
None of them qualified?
They're not the best qualified, we only bring the best qualified forward.
They're
would
not
that-
qualified. So, okay, yeah, I know, but I might skip that. Okay. Go ahead.
I think what everybody has discussed so far makes sense. I think that, for this budget, this isn't this budget, the budget covers the cost of these guys. But I think we need to look at it and have a review, part of the budget presentation, maybe that Bruce can come up and say, okay, well, Moni, that's where I live, and I love my guys out there, they do a great job for me. There's 2 supervisors and 10 maintenance people. What do they do? How many miles of road? All rural, mostly. And then review that process, and you could see that. That would be the best way, I think, to have a little presentation. He's got a nice review here that he put together, and then we could see if you can find any efficiencies or not. Because we're just guessing if there's an efficiency or not, and,
All right, for the sake of time, you know, then it'd be the pleasure of the committee to bring these back next month.
Could I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. How would, when we do that, how would that affect, Bruce, the current workload that needs to be done right now? I understand everything that's being said, there needs to be some discussion, but right now, there's a need for 4 people. How would that affect you right now?
Well, that 13% reduction, obviously, then that puts the burden on those other 27 individuals to take up the slack of those 4 individuals.
They have to eat their
Regardless
Cheerios,
of, or
some
depending on what work they're doing.
In the private sector, we call that productivity. I'm being sarcastic.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Brooks?
No,
How about we just bring this back next month? And Bruce, maybe we can sit down here and talk about
Sure.
how you operate.
Absolutely.
Okay, proclamations,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, we have 3 coming forward that will be read from the seats.
Correct.
One of them we need to check on, Mr. Babbage, we need to have a conversation with him on that, but
He brought one forward, but we don't know if he.
we don't know who this person is, that's what's going on.
But Gretchen and Jackie.
So we'll hold the spot for it.
Okay, so we're gonna.
You want all 3 listed on the agenda?
All
Or
of
do
you
you want to
listed.
hold off on that one?
Well, put them on the agenda. Well, leave that, you can wait on Joe's if you want, since you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, we got the copy of what it is, but, I mean, did you want to,
It's up to you guys.
do you want to just let Joe do this from the desk, or do you need?
That's fine.
Okay, we'll do all 3 of them from
So
the
make a
desk.
motion to approve
Yeah.
the,
So moved.
moves, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We got the appointments of the county executive. Before I ask for a vote on this, we did add the workforce investment board due to a change in the law. We have to do it now. And we didn't get it over here quick enough, so.
And there are copies here of that.
There are copies.
We got it.
So I'll entertain a motion to
So
approve the
moved.
county executive's
Second.
appointment. We have motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Is there any other,
You have the one item of new business.
you know, I do have a resolution authorizing IGA with the Forest Reserve in Joliet for the extension for water and sewer on the Laramie Road. Move to the county. So I need to place this on the county board agenda.
Motion.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The committee reports, Mr. Weigel, land use.
No zoning case 1 resolution. It's a refund for the Bolingbrook project of the special use permit, which was removed by the petitioner. The committee recommended approval of refund.
Okay, is there any questions about land use? You know, the other, Mary, I'm gonna ask you this, maybe you know, or Bruce, maybe you know. This business about refinancing fees, especially when most of the work has been done, is in our ordinance, we automatically give them an appeal process? I mean, this one, I think, for me at least, is like a no-brainer. I mean, we did all types of work, we had hearing after hearing, it didn't work out the way they wanted, and now they're asking for their money back.
I don't, is that a normal thing?
Why are we even bringing this here?
You don't have to, the ordinance only states that the only entity that can grant a refund is the board. So you can choose not to put it on your agenda.
Okay, well, now I think that's the discussion, whether we want to put that on the agenda. David, can I ask you, did we do a substantial amount of work? Did we do all the work that we would normally do related to those permits or those fees?
In this particular case, it did go through the process and went to the board, so a substantial amount of the work was completed.
Okay, so I'm going to say that we won't even consider a refund. How much is the amount of the refund?
The request is for $3,750. The original request was for $4,400. And they're reapplying for the zoning case, and it's kind of like getting a credit for that. But so, I mean, they are requesting $3,750.
I mean, I think when, you know, this is a case that we spent a lot of time on. I mean, I don't know why we would be even considering fees back. Mike?
Do we state, when they are paying these fees, do we state they're non-refundable?
States in the fee schedule, it's stated non-refundable. And,
I just want to say, the instances where we've given refunds is where they've actually paid it, and then there was no work done. And they basically said, you know, the deal fell through, I didn't get the property, or I just found out it's all floodplain, and I backed out of the contract, and we did no work. That's one thing, but we've done all the work. I don't even,
Put all that time in, I don't even know why we're having this
and
discussion.
so, I would entertain a motion that we remove it from the.
Second.
Fine, you make a motion?
Making that motion.
Second, all in favor?
I'm a no.
Okay, so that'll be removed from the agenda.
just to be clear, the fee schedule, the language on it is exactly for me, so certain instances, if something's been taken to consideration, then straight on the refund. But absent that, it says that any refund request, only the board can approve it.
I mean, I think that we're being fair. Okay, anything under land use? Okay, finance?
Yeah, we're still redoing a contract for annual audit.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Public Works?
Variety of different things, changing speed limits, some county construction of some bridges, doing some variances with Mills Road, Manhattan Money Road, and egress along Laraway Road. So variety of different things.
Any questions for Mr. Wood? The official's not here. They meet, could be.
We did meet, but there's nothing coming before them.
There's nothing come forward. Public health and safety?
And we didn't have a
No,
meeting
but
this
you are
month.
having the health department.
But we do have health department presentation, so, but they,
Okay, let me ask, only because we have the presentation of the budget, and we have the RTA people coming. I think we can put that presentation up to next month.
yeah, we can do that, sure, for the timelines, yeah.
Okay, because of the time, okay, all right. So then we'll
I'd like to make a motion to put it on to next one.
okay,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anything else to
No, that's it.
legislative?
Yeah, the only thing, we're just getting ready, we're gonna meet in a couple of weeks with our lobbyist and just talk about our future agenda. And so if anyone has anything that they would like to put on for legislation, this is the time to speak up.
Any questions? Any improvements?
My iPad died, so No, you don't have anything.
Just the DLR contract will go
DLR
on.
DLR going to you.
Put on there and then parking fees.
Jim, do you want the resolution for the IGA to go on your capital as well, or is that gonna go on your executive?
I can look at that on there.
Okay.
Suppose the government agreement say.
Okay.
Okay, is there any questions for Ray? Okay, executive, is there any questions for me? No, I'm going to ask for public comments here shortly. Don't run off, we do have to have an executive session. But at this time, is there any public comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just did want to make a comment. We've had in Eastern Will County, Southern Eastern Will County, we've had a lot of break-ins, and our great sheriff's department has done a really good job. They've made some more arrests, 3 more arrests the other day. They found somebody in a house, somebody that they just left, and they ran somebody else down. So the residents are feeling much happier out there that this happened, and it takes time. People in the public get upset because, and I know, my house has been broken into, you know, as well. Live out in the country, you're subject to having that happen. But they've done a great job at doing all kinds of strategic work, I would say, so they're not out there like waving a flag saying, you know, here I am, so don't come down my road. But, so they've done a great job at doing that, and I know the residents are feeling much happier out there, so, you know, thanks to you guys for getting that done. And Tom does a great job of keeping me informed so that I can then pass it on to everybody else. Still want to do the meetings so that we'll have this again, there's next season comes along, every time the corn goes up, the crime goes up.
Yeah.
Place
to hide.
Right, so I just wanted to make that public because it's an important,
So are they like children of the corn?
they're like children of the corn. We don't know where they come from or where they go. And they're evil, like children. So that's what I mean.
Okay. Is there any public comments today? Is there any other additional committee member comments? Then I'm going to entertain a motion on executive session for litigation.
Approve it.
We'll wait till you come out.
Come out? Oh, okay.
Approve when you come out, just in
Okay.
case something has to be done.
Okay.
Because I don't know.
Motion for executive.
So we got a motion for litigation and collective bargaining. Motion second, take the roll, please.
Mayor,
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Freitag. Chris Malone.
Yes.
Cool. Art. Ogala. Yes. Michael.
So when we come out of executive session or something.
State's attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Do we need two separate, Mary, for the recommendations for both cases?
Recommendations of the,
As long as they're okay.
of the two recommendations from
Well,
state's
yeah,
attorney.
there were for both cases.
Okay, motions? Yes, they're from both cases.
Yes, they are.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion to set the county board agenda as amended.
So moved.
Moved, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion adjourned.